Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here. Thank you for choosing my video. We're playing another session of 1-2-6 max no limit on ignition, and the games are already up and running, so we'll jump right into the action. Lower left-hand table will raise the cutoff with ace-jack using the 28% range. Games look pretty promising in the moment. A handful of short stacks on pretty much every table. Maybe not the lower right-hand table, but every other table has at least one spot so far. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, we will raise with the ace-8. Lower right-hand table, we're on the button facing a 3x open from the middle position player. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet here with ace-jack, using about a 9% range. This is probably one of the worst hands I would 3-bet pre-flop. We'd use ace-jack plus king-queen as far as offsuit broadways go, and probably nothing weaker than that. Mix in most, if not all, of the suited broadways, maybe pocket pairs 9 or higher, and a couple of suited wheel aces like ace-5 and ace-4. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, we'll raise the tens first, pocket tens first in. And we'll check range to the short stack big blind on the ace-8-6 monotone board. He checks back. I'm going to go ahead and jab at this pot small on the turn. Let me quickly take it down. Lower left-hand table will raise first in from the button with 5-4 suited, using about a 44% range. Same situation, upper right-hand table with the pocket deuces on the button. The lower left-hand table, our open gets 3-bet from 5 to 20, a 4x size 3-bet by the small blind. This is a formation where the regs are pretty loose, as they're supposed to be, and they find a lot of their 3-bets. We can go ahead and defend pretty wide against the 3-bet in this spot, including most, if not all, of our suited connector and gapper type cards. So I'm going to go ahead and take a flop with 5-4 suited. Upper left-hand table will raise the cutoff first in with ace-queen using a 28% range. Lower left-hand table, we get continuation bet against us. He bets small, about 1/3 of pot. We have a weak gut shot with no backdoors. However, that 6 does make the nuts for us. I'm going to float against a small size, at least one street. Can consider turning this hand into a bluff at some spot. Upper left-hand table, 3-handed with the player in position. I'll be checking range on the ace-high flop. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, I would usually 3-bet 6-7 suited. Because he's short-stacked, I think I'd rather just go ahead and take the flop. Now, in the upper left-hand table, it checks to us again on the turn. I'm just going to go ahead and start betting small. Upper right-hand table, I will stab for half pot in that blind battle. I'm going to go ahead and check back my weak 4. I'd rather be bluffing with hands like ace-5. I guess I could float with ace-5 of spades kind of thing. With the 4, I think I'd rather try to take some showdown if he's going to let me get there. He checks again, so I'll gladly take my showdown. We lose to pocket tens, but I think that's okay. I'm going to try to bluff him off those kind of hands when I have less showdown value, my air floats that don't make any sort of pair. And I'm going to think I take my showdown with my 7 here. I don't really know that he ever folds any ace-x or even too much 10x type hands. I think there's more value in showing this one down as opposed to trying to make him, fold better. Lower right-hand table will raise king-queen under the gun using an 18% range. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, will raise 7-5 suited using a 45% range. Imposition player calls us, and I will check range to him in the ace-7-6 two-tone board. He quickly checks back. Turn is the 4, giving us an open-ended straight draw to go with our second pair. I will start jabbing at that pot small. Lower right-hand table, I will check range to the in-position player on Jack-3 deuce two-tone. Get a half-pot bet. That's pretty close, given I've got the overcards and the heart. I think I want to float that once with the heart in my hand. Without it, I think I would just go ahead and fold. Upper right-hand table, raise Queen 10 on the button. Lower right-hand table, he checks back the turn. I've got no choice but to go ahead and turn my my king high into a bluff in that situation. You bet about 2/3 of pot on that river, try to fold them off middling pocket pairs. Jack X probably won't fold, Ace X won't fold. He's got a hand like pocket 7s, I bet I can fold them off of that. Upper right-hand table, Jack-5 deuce monotone. I will go ahead and continuation bet with my range for a small size. I do have the Queen of clubs. Upper left-hand table, get a weak player opens 3x, another weak player calls in the small blind. I will defend the big blind for a call here, closing the action with ace-3 suited. Upper right-hand table, we have the open-ended straight draw to go with our queen high, draw to the 4 flush. I'm going to go ahead and continue betting using a half pot size on that monotone board. He quickly calls again. I'm going to go ahead and put in that third barrel and not give up with my queen high here. Can maybe fold out some Jack X, some ace high flush draws that bricked. Weaker pairs very often will fold to the third barrel. Those river bluffs there where I'm tripling off, it's not that I think the triple off line is inherently very, very profitable in a vacuum. It's that once I get myself there with hands that I've double barreled, reasonably speaking, it's going to be more profitable to stab at that river and pick up some share of the pot than it will be just to surrender and showdown my queen high and win virtually no percentage of that pot. Upper left-hand table, it checked through on the flop and checks to me again on the turn, so I'm going to start stabbing small as a bluff. Lower right-hand table will raise the button with ace-queen offsuit using a 44% range. Oh, in the upper right-hand table, I acted too quick. These players are both not in there. I was really in the cutoff and should have opened queen 10, so that's a small mistake on my part right there. Lower right-hand table, raise 9-8 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. This player here in the cutoff, I referenced him being a weak player earlier. I'm basing that on the fact that he's playing 50-21 over 14 hands. He also seemed to use some funky pre-flop sizing in some spots. Taking a closer look here, when he's VPIP without raising, he's done it from the small blind and big blind, not calling too much in position. He's not a true obvious fish in the guys that are playing short and limping. But he doesn't seem like a real well-refined, serious, technically sound player at the same time. So we'll keep an eye on that and perhaps revise, but at the moment he seems to be a weaker player. This player here playing 45 blinds deep, and with limps on his resume, we can go ahead and tag. Lower left-hand table, I'll raise the queens first in from middle position, using a 21% range. Get called by a short stack small blind player. He's only got about 12 blinds left. We're going to go ahead and range bet him small on the 4-3 deuce rainbow flop. Never folding queens on this particular board. If he check raises, we're just going to get it all in. Turn is the 10 of diamonds, putting the backdoor flush draw out there. We still have an overpair. He only has a little more than pot left, $21 with just about 18 out there. I'm just going to go ahead and move him all in. I can do this with my sets, although I might trap those to some extent, or ace-5 straights. I can do this with my overpairs, my 10x. I can do this with various flush draws, various 5x type hands. I think we just want to go all in or check back here for that slight overbet. Pocket queen is a great hand to overbet all in. Oh, and he shows up with pocket kings. Did not see that one coming. But nothing we do differently, even if I thought there was a chance he actually slow walks me with the big pair. Upper right-hand table in the blind battle, we checked range on the king, queen, queen two-tone. On the 3 of hearts turn, putting the flush closer out there, we'll go ahead and start jabbing small. With our pocket tens, I don't really know that I'm going to fold out any king X or queen X or any flushes. I don't know that I get called by too many worse hands. I think I'm better off checking this one as opposed to betting. Lower left-hand table, I will raise the under the gun with pocket threes using about an 18% range. We get bet into here. We get bet here on the river after we check the tens. 2/3 sizing from fish in the blind battle is reasonably bluffy, as is the check call bet line, a little less bluffy than typical, but still not enough to outside my sizing base tell. So I'm going to go ahead and call this down. And I'm paying off queen X, king X a decent bit, but I'm snapping off some of those stupid random heart draw type hands there like he had. From fish, it's very hard to fold because they have so much junk in their range. They just end up on the river with so many hands they have to bluff. Their range construction is fairly poor. They get to the river looking down at so many potential bluffs, they've got no choice but to fire with them, and I want to be there to snap those bluffs off when it happens. For right-hand table, we'll raise the cutoff first in with queen 10 using a 28% range. Recreational player big blind calls and then checks to me on the king 5 deuce rainbow flop. I will go ahead and range bet him small. Get called. Turn is the ace of diamonds, putting a backdoor flush draw out there. We don't have the backdoor flush draw, but we do have the nut flush blocker. On this particular texture, I want to be using an overbet or check size. I'm not going to be betting all my gut shots, but the gut shots with the high flush blocker are good candidates to put into the barreling range, so I'm going to go ahead and overbet with the queen 10 here. That overbet just puts so much pressure on all sorts of parts of his range there, unless he somehow has the ace, which you shouldn't have too many ace high combos after check calling the flop. He will have some. I'll be looking to follow through on the river. A third diamond, if a third diamond peels off on the river there, where I have the nut flush blocker at that point, and it's a non-paired board, that may end up being the overbet all-in bluff combo right there, just because it's got such good removal properties. on a more vanilla brick run out, nothing that interacts too special where I don't have some kind of premium, blocker removal to the nuts. So I'll continue bluffing on a brick river as well, but probably for a more normal size, more like 2/3. Lower left-hand table, a recreational player limps under the gun. I will isolate him from the cutoff using something like a middle position open range, about 21%, including ace-3 suited. Everyone quickly folds. Lower left-hand table will raise king-queen from the middle position using a 21% range. On the lower left-hand table, recreational player big blind playing about 55 blinds deep goes ahead and calls. We get a king 7-3 rainbow flop. I will go ahead and range bet small. That's a nice clean flop for our king queen, looking to get a lot of value here as long as the board doesn't get too bad. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind. We're facing the 3x open. We will go ahead and 3-bet the pocket queens there. We get check called on the lower left-hand table. Turn is a 10. We're going to continue betting here with our king-queen. Upper right-hand table against that button, raise first in. We defend the 2.5x with 9-7 suited. Lower right-hand table, go ahead and continuation bet our range small on ace-8-9. We'll overbet the turn here with king-queen. Should have maybe gone slightly smaller, but I think that's okay. Planning to just jam the river unless it's something like an ace, maybe a 7 or a 10. I might get a bit leery on, but most rivers I'm just looking to get 3 streets and take his half stack from him there with my good top pair. I was running a bit short on time trying to juggle the hands on all the tables at the same time. I didn't want to risk timing out and not get my turn bet in, so I didn't think about the sizing quite well enough. Because he was shallow, I probably wanted to bet a bit smaller to bet a roughly geometric size where I can get him all in over the turn in the river with roughly equal size relative to the pot. Roughly equal sized bets relative to the pot on both the turn and the river. So my turn overbet there was probably a little bit too large, but that's a pretty minor quibble, minor mistake in the grand scheme of things. Get a raise and a re-raise on the lower left-hand table. In the big blind, I'm going to be playing in that spot a cold 4-bet or fold. Probably pop it up to about 37 if I'm going to continue using a small size with the 2 on-cap ranges out there from the RFI and the 3-bet. That said, I think this is probably a little bit too loose to put into that range, but it's pretty close. Not as far off as you might think. Upper right-hand table, raised ace-queen suited first in from the cutoff with a 28% range, get called by an in-position player and the big blind, so I'll check range. We got a king-jack-7 two-tone flop. We do have the nut flush draw and the gut shot. It checks around, so I'm going to start stabbing small. Upper left-hand table, we get a blind battle from a nitty passive fishy short stack. It opens to 3x. In a standard spot, Queen 9 is a very clear call for a defense. It's a bit closer with this guy being so nitty and passive so far and being short. I think I'm going to go ahead and call, but I'm not completely sure where the line should be given those other factors at play here. We get a 10-7-5, two-tone flop. He checks to me, so I'm just going to go ahead and stab for half pot. For right-hand table, under the gun opens for 3x. I will fold my king 9 suited on the button, especially with him being on the loose passive side so far. Lower right-hand table, I will raise under the gun with an 18% range using ace-deuce suited this particular time. Trying to find a fourth table with some good players at it. That last one I'm getting seems to be reg heavy, but the other tables all seem pretty promising, so I should be able to find a fourth good one. Got at least one guy playing about 75 blinds deep at this new one, so we'll try this one. Upper left-hand table, we get a limp from a recreational player on the button. We're going to go ahead and isolate him up from the small blind with king-queen suited. Use a large sizing, isolating from the blinds, and using a fairly tight range, roughly 13%. He comes along. We get a Jack 9-7 two-tone flop. This is the kind of board that should probably hit his range pretty hard. I'm going to go ahead and actually check range as opposed to betting range here. And he just instantly leaves and gives me the pot anyway. Thank you very much. I love these guys. Upper left-hand table doesn't seem to have any more spots, so we're going to go ahead and shuffle that one out here. Lower right-hand table, get a 3x open from the middle position player. We suspect he's probably on the fishy side. You can go ahead and call with ace-10 toward the bottom of defense range against that size, but still reasonable to defend with. Upper left-hand table, blind on blind, we'll raise with ace-9 using about a 45% range. And on that king-9 deuce two-tone board, we have ace-10, no diamonds. We're just going to go ahead and check fold against that size. For right-hand table, queen-4 deuce in the blind battle, rainbow, we'll go ahead and check range. Get a half-pot bet. I will float the half-pot bet with the check call here just because my ace and my 9 are both likely to be hands I can bluff catch or value bet on. I can also try to bluff him off of things on the river if need be. Lower right-hand table, a recreational player open limps the button. I will complete with king 9 offsuit. We get overbet on the turn. I will go ahead and check fold my ace high. I'll check fold against that pot size bet with my gut shot on the lower right-hand table. Upper left-hand table, we'll raise threes on the button using a 44% range. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise the button with pocket tens using a 44% range. Thought he was playing short, but I guess he's not. That was just a fluky hand where I noticed that. Upper right-hand table, we'll raise the cutoff with 10-9 suited using a 28% range. Upper right-hand table will raise ace-jack from middle position using a 21% range. Three X open from middle position on the lower right-hand table. We're in the big blind with King 10 offsuit. Against the middle position open, that's a little bit outside of a standard calling range. It's pretty close. If you might want to start telling me you think this guy's been active, playing looser range, he might be fishy and weak, and you're going to go ahead and call because of that, I don't have a real strong argument against it. I think that's pretty reasonable. But I've got to draw the line somewhere, and I'm drawing the line at Ace 10 and King Jack as my defense hands in those spots. Upper right-hand table, we get a 4X open from a short-stacked weak player under the gun. We've got pocket twos in the big blind. Against that size, you don't really want to be calling with the pocket twos. I'm just putting too much money in pre-flop looking for that third deuce when there's not enough money behind to justify it. I guess that's probably not quite a re-raise or fold situation. I kind of have some calls, but small pairs like pocket deuces should probably be folded against that size, especially because he's short. If he was deep, it'd be a different story. I think I would call if he was full stacked, but lower right-hand table will raise Jack 9 on the button using a 44% range. Upper right-hand table blind on blind will raise Ace Queen using a 45% range. Against that small blind 3-bet, these offsuit connected and Broadway type cards or hands should go ahead and fold for the most part. We don't want to get involved against those. Even if the sizing was a bit smaller, I'm probably still going to fold this. It's also one of the worst hands in my RFI range from the button, so I'll just go ahead and fold the worst hands against the 3-bet. Upper right-hand table will raise 10s on the button using a 44% range. Big blind calls. We get a Jack 9-7 two-tone flop. He quickly checks. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Lower left-hand table will raise King Jack from under the gun using an 18% range. Get called by an in-position player, middle position, and then squeezed from the cutoff. Going to be very tight here, out of position to two players in a tight formation to begin with, facing that 3-bet. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold King Jack and not even think about that. Of more important note is the 4-seat here is cold calling an RFI from middle position. Oh, then he also calls the squeeze behind. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a weaker player doing those things. I'd like to see his holding to see if I get a feel for what kind of hand he's doing that with before I jump to that conclusion. But I'm suspicious already that this guy may be weak. Lower right-hand table, raise Queen Jack from middle position using a 21% range. Recreational player calls me in position, and I get squeezed from the big blind. I'm going to be out of position to at least one player here. I could get back jammed, so I'm going to be a bit more cautious with my continues. This is already shouldn't be all that loose a 3-bet to begin with, given that I open from middle position. I think I can just go ahead and fold the hand this week, but even much stronger hands I'm going to be very cautious with just because of the tight formation, the player acting behind me. Upper right-hand table, I'll raise 3s from middle position using a 21% range. This guy folded to that second barrel. Lower left-hand table, blind on blind, face a 3x open. Go ahead and defend for a call with Queen 9 offsuit. He goes ahead and he bets very small, about a third of pot or so. I'm going to go ahead and float this with an overcard and some backdoor straight draws. Prefer it with the diamond in my hand, of course, but I'll fold to the second barrel here. Yeah, especially against the overbet. Upper left-hand table, 8-7 suited is a little bit too loose and open for me under the gun. Probably use 10-9 or better, fold 9-8, 8-7. Lower right-hand table, going to use 6-9 suited to open blind on blind, part of about 45% range. Quickly get 3-bet to a 3x size. This is another very loose formation. We can actually defend out of position a lot against 3-bets. And like 6-9 suited, probably a little bit too loose to do. I think a solver would probably defend this, though it's pretty close. The pool 3-bets a lot, but not quite as aggressively as a solver. I think you can go ahead and fold this one. It's pretty close, though, actually. Under the gun, player on the lower right-hand table opens 2.5x. We will 3-bet from the button with ace-4 suited using an 8 or 9% range. And on hands like ace-king, ace-queen, king-queen, pocket 9s or better, most if not all of the suited broadways, and a couple suited wheel aces like ace-5, ace-4. He calls. We get a jack 6-3 two-tone flop. I'll go ahead and put in my small range bet. Upper left-hand table will defend the button 3x open from the big blind with 9-6 suited. We get check call the lower right-hand table. We now have a gut shot to go with our nut flush draw. I'm going to continue barreling in this spot. We'll use a 2/3 size. Set myself up to barrel off the river, whether I hit or miss. We get a pot-size bet. I don't usually see flop bets all that large. I'm going to go ahead and fold my pair of sixes on Jack, Jack, 6 here against that large sizing. I'm not going to get myself sucked into a bigger pot where I'm not sure where I'm at against a guy using unusually large flop sizes, which tends to denote tighter ranges and more value. Lower left-hand table, we raise the cutoff first in with King Queen at 28% range, get called by the big blind who checks to us on Queen 7-3 two-tone, so I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Look to continue barreling on most possible turn cards with this hand. However, not the offsuit ace. He check calls us, we get the ace of spades. We're going to go ahead and use overbet or check sizes on this particular situation. Overbets are going to be hands like my sets, maybe a set of aces I can check back and trap. You know, two pair type hands and then strong ace X, maybe sort of like ace 10 or better for overbets. Check back the weaker pairs. You know, I'd also be betting hands like 4, 5, 5, 6, and various diamond draws, though I think I might check back some small diamond draws. We can look to bluff catch or value bet the river here in most cases. He bets 2/3 into me. I think that's just going to be a very standard call down. He got there with ace high that check called the flop, which will happen some of the time. If I'm weaker, I might even bluff raise. If the pair of queens, king queen, is just too strong to turn into a bluff. We can just show that one down. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, we'll raise ace 3 first in. Upper left-hand or lower left-hand table, cutoff min raises. We'll defend from the big blind with suited queen, queen 6 suited. Check range on the 6-6-4 two-tone. Upper left-hand table, we'll raise middle position first in with pocket 5s using a 21% range. This guy goes ahead and mashes the pot button. I'm going to go ahead and check call with my 6x. Turn is the queen, giving me 6s full of queens for essentially the nuts. Upper left-hand table, we'll check range to the in-position player who called on king 6 deuce. He continues mashing the pot button. I'm going to continue allowing him to do that with his bluffs or weaker value hands. So I'm going to keep check calling. Check to him on the river. It's a flush closing river. His backdoor flushes just burned himself if they got there. Upper left-hand table, I'm going to start jabbing at that pot small on the turn after the flop checks through. He had pocket 9s. Probably not getting too much more out of him at some point. Upper left-hand table, our turn jab got called. I'm going to turn this hand into a bluff on the river as we lose to 4 different pairs on the board. I'm not trying to get value. I'm trying to get him to fold a 6x or a 9x type hand. Get a little bit over a 3x open. From the cutoff, he's short stack. We're just going to raise up our kings and get them in. He moves all in. We snap call with the kings. We're up against ace king, so he's pretty strong there, and we're not out of the woods. We're ahead, but not a lock. And we hold up. Upper left-hand table, raise pocket 5s first in, blind on blind, using a 45% range. We get 3-bet. Against that 3x 3-bet from regs, we can go ahead and defend all of our pocket pairs for either 4 bets or calls. Pocket 5s will just defend for a call. We will check range to the in-position player. Lousy board for our particular combo, though we do have various sets and 10-9 type hands to hit that board hard. He goes ahead and he checks the turn. I'm going to start stabbing using this hand as a bluff. I'm going to use smaller sizings, jab the turn for a smaller size. If he peeled queen X, I'm not going to get him off it, but if he has a hand like 10s or 9s, I can probably fold him off of that with the river barrel. Sounds like he had total error and just was worried that hits my calling range too hard and just checked and then folded on the turn. Upper right-hand table, the button opens 2.5x. I can defend most of my offsuit aces from the big blind, so I will be defending with the ace-5 offsuit unless the small blind gets involved. Upper left-hand table, I will open the cutoff with king-queen suited using a 28% range. Lower left-hand table will open the button with ace-4 offsuit using a 44% range. You get 3-bet in position in the upper left-hand table cutoff first button. Pretty large size, 3.5x. Could be pretty tight against that sizing, but some of the better suited Broadway hands like ace-queen, ace-jack, king-queen, ace-10, king-jack, those kind of hands can be defended for a call. Maybe a few pocket pairs that aren't quite good enough to 4-bet as well, like pocket 9s, maybe pocket 10s, depending on where you put that one. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, will raise king-queen first in using a 45% range. We'll check range to the big blind on jack 6-4. Get a 2.5x open from the button. The lower left-hand table will defend from the big blind with 10-9 and check range. Against the pretty healthy, about 60% continuation bet, we'll go ahead and check fold king-queen high on the ace-high board with no backdoor draw. Upper right-hand table, the recreational player stabs 4 into 12. We've got 2 overcards, pivot to the straight. We'll go ahead and check call that. And we'll just check fold our 10 high on that triple queen flop. He does not bet the turn. He quickly checks. I'm going to turn my king high into a bluff here. It's pretty close with that board pairing. His king high has some showdown value. I think it's probably a little bit more profitable to bluff him off something than it is to try to show down king queen high, but it's pretty close. Given that board paired and our king high is kind of more like an ace high with a paired board out there. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise the button with ace-7 offsuit using a 44% range. Oh, my recreational players have gone broke or moved along at these tables. They're no longer as juicy as they appeared to be earlier. I do have to leave pretty soon anyway, so I think I'm just going to shut the session down slightly earlier than I otherwise planned and take care of a couple other non-poker things first. I should be back later on tonight, though. Lower right-hand table, raise the cutoff first in with 10-8 suited, about a 28% RFI range. We get 3-bet in position by the button. We'll just go ahead and fold that hand against the 3-bet. Lower left-hand table will raise pocket sevens under the gun using an 18% range. And everyone folds. That was the last hand of the session, so I'm about to shut it down. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed watching. I know I enjoyed making it. Until next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.